Welcome to the All Things Safety podcast. I'm Benita Mehta, Chief Editor of ISHN. Today, I'm talking to Alex Hempel, a Senior Director at ORBIS. And we'll be talking about why reusable plastic packaging is not just a green choice, but also an asset for navigating federal regulations and also tight margins for facilities. Hi, Alex.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. How are you today?
Doing great, doing great. Happy to be with you.
Great, thanks. So we'll delve right into my first question. So as warehouses are becoming more automated, which is a hot topic I know in the industry and with ISHN as well, how does reusable packaging fit in? And how does it also follow a lot of strict compliance requirements?
Sure, a great question and timely topic. There is a massive wave of investment going across the warehouse space and distribution centers, really focused on driving automation within those facilities. And really, reusable packaging is extremely conducive to that investment into automation, whether it's simplistic conveyor systems all the way up to high-end robotic pick and pack automation and warehousing efforts to support those pick and pack operations. And you get a couple key benefits with reusables that you don't see with either one-way cardboard boxes and or lighter duty, lower cost wood pallets. And a couple fronts here. With that investment, obviously you look at a lot of robotics, pieces of equipment that are moving. So with reusables, you get a lot of standardization and precision in those products, and you remove the either dust or contamination, fragments from boxes, and especially on wood pallets as underloads that are common in the supply chain today. Anytime you're dealing with automation or conveyors or robotics, inconsistencies in those wood pallets during assembly, and if reused, chips or splinters, fractures of those wood pallets, maybe jagged nails that are poking up, really can gunk up the system and those robotics chain conveyors and cause a lot of downtime. And downtime in highly efficient, highly optimized warehouses or supply chains is not good, right? That means downtime means loss of money and inefficiencies. So that's a key benefit with reusables. Providing consistencies, durable, robust products really help create some efficient streamline of product flow. Another piece I hinted on it as well, product breakage or exposure. So not only downtime, you get the core ROI benefits of reusable packaging and keeping systems running, but product damage, either the secondary packaging of the boxes that we talked about before, or especially in food environments, product breakage, primary products, food, especially in food environments. Obviously, that creates some safety issues. So that's a big focus for Orbis, is how do we introduce reusables into that supply chain, especially food and beverage supply chain, to remove the potential contaminants or risk of foodborne illness through product breakage, or even pests that harbor in wood porous materials like pallets or in cardboard. That creates a lot of risk as well. So that's really where reusable packaging really draws some benefits into those supply chains.
Okay, great. And then related to supply chain issues, so when it comes to fixing some issues that people may have in their supply chain, how important is standardization for overall efficiency when it comes to packaging?
Yeah, extremely important. We touched on a couple of these in the last topic here, but standardization obviously breeds efficiency, and having a consistent packaging layout of product, and it's repeatable, especially when you're in highly automated facilities where you're requiring less about on people to do those jobs, picking, packing, moving, and more on robotics. Those are built off of precise either pack counts, weights, layouts on pallets as an example of product. And that's where the introduction of reusable packaging and the standardization that comes with reusable packaging really benefits the supply chain in creating those efficiencies. As companies look to create standards across their supply chain, they're really focusing on a couple of different things. One being how do we move their products throughout their supply chain as efficient as possible? So creating efficiencies throughout that. How do those companies manage through driving accuracy on pick rates? See, standardization and preciseness means higher accuracy in pick rates and movements throughout their supply chain, and ultimately delivering the right product to the end user. So that's another key focus point from our customers. And then the other piece is how do we manage through the changes or mitigate risk of labor shortage or availability? That's another key topic here over the past handful of years, that standardization of packaging to enable automation throughout those facilities is really a key focus. So a couple different fronts on benefits from standardization, but really it's all around creating efficiencies throughout the supply chain.
Okay, great. And then moving on to sustainability. So when people hear plastic, they don't always think, quote unquote, green. Can you explain the life cycle of a reusable container versus a recyclable cardboard box or other types of packaging? And then how does this hit company sustainability goals?
Sure. Yeah. Common misconception, right? You hear plastic on the news and want to separate between the single-use plastics that you might see out there that in the landfills or the ocean, plastic straws, water bottles, things like that. Let's call that primary single-use packaging, where Orbis really focuses on the transport packaging or secondary packaging to move product throughout the supply chain. And that is extremely sustainable, right? Our main focus is driving waste out of the supply chain. We talked a bit about those on the first two topics, but as we introduce reusable packaging and our core focus is on plastic-based products to eliminate single-use cardboard, single-use pallets, wood pallets, and yes, at times those can be recycled. But the amount of water consumption that it takes to get that back into a reusable state is mind-boggling. And our big focus is how do we reduce the amount of use on new products going in, and that's where the design nature of our products and the robustness of those products to be reused throughout multiple iterations really shines. And obviously, another big focus on our side is, Orbis has been leading the charge in at the end of life of our packaging. We'll take that back, offer a financial incentive to do that as we procure that back, being able to grind that down and melt that and reuse that back into new products. So that in itself is highly sustainable. And we're now starting to experiment over the past handful of years and focus on where we started out in the first portion of this topic is buying back those post-consumer materials, not only products that we've produced, materials that we've produced in the past, but how do we start capturing those single-use products, turn those back into those natural states and introduce those into new products as well. So we're taking product from the ocean, we're taking product from landfills and reintroducing that back into new reusable packaging to help the movement of goods. And that really is focusing on those sustainability targets over our customer base, especially the CPGs that are trying to drive out waste and hit their sustainability goals. That's really where we can add some value in reducing that waste on single use for primary packaging that they might be using or manufacturing to hold their products that they're producing. So turning that back into reusable transport packaging is a huge benefit from a sustainability standpoint.
Okay, great. And you touched on this a bit, so but just looking forward to the next decade, going into 2030, what is the biggest shift you expect to see related to sustainability and also reusable packaging?
Yeah, and reusable packaging has been around for decades and decades, and the front end of that was very P&L based, I'll call it, focusing on the return on investment of packaging. And see, our focus is to design and produce a robust product, and that on an individual unit basis will be a little bit more expensive than a single use later duty throwaway type of packaging. But through reuse and consistency and standardization that we talked about, you'll see that return on investment come through. And that's been in place and used as justification to introduce and procure reusable packaging for decades. Where I see this heading, we're already starting to see that, and we talked about it on the last topic here, is maybe a more comprehensive look on investment, not only on the ROI, but introducing the sustainability metrics as part of that. So as part of that justification, and not just on a fact-based financial standpoint. So that's where I see us headed. Regulations are a big portion to that as well, and that's where I see us headed. Not to mention, we talked about it earlier, but the massive waves of automation investment going on in the supply chain warehouse space that will continue to be a driving focus and growing over the next handful of years.
Yeah, great. And so finally, maybe a little of a personal question, but in your time at Orbis, can you talk about any changes in thinking about supply chain management, about how it's handled? Each has certain changes in the industry in general, but have you seen anything personally?
Sure. I've been with Orbis for coming up on 14 years, and I've spent time on the automotive, industrial space of our business, as well as the retail supply chain side of our business, which I'm currently working in and supporting. And across those two, and kind of tying in a couple of the topics that we talked about all together, seeing that a larger and growing focus on introduction of reusables in this space, seen a massive pickup over the past years. And like I said in the past, maybe looking at it very narrowly in the past of a financial, on the books metric and using that to justify investment. We're seeing a lot of different aspects now starting to come into that justification. And that's probably the biggest shift in supply chain management and really drawing a closer eye in how do we go and really use reusable packaging to benefit a couple different fronts, whether it's financial metrics, efficiencies at the plant or supply chain side of things as they're moving goods, over to how do we use reusable packaging to hit sustainability metrics for companies. And then food safety and using that as reusables as a way to protect and mitigate foodborne illness into the supply chain and contaminate food. Another piece that we talked about in the past is compliance in the legislation piece, and we're seeing some fairly bold stances going across the European theater and making its way into Canada, and obviously in California as well, as banning some of those single-use plastics. And how does Orbis be a contributor to that and reclaim those from landfill and in the ocean and reintroduce that back into our reusable packaging? And another piece, maybe a different thought as well that we didn't touch on, is track and trace technology. And we're investing into these assets that are beneficial as reusable packaging. We're investing into those assets. How do we maintain control and not lose those packages throughout the supply chain? And also starting to experiment and using the reusable pallet as an example, as a mechanism through barcode or GPS to help track and trace movements of the end product that it's transporting. Where is that product throughout the supply chain, or dwell time of inventory of food goods within the supply chain, or maybe out at retail. So using reusable packaging as a mechanism to track and trace product is another piece that is really starting to gain some traction here over the past handful of years. So just some thoughts and perspective over my time over the past, I guess a little over a decade here, decade and a half. But really seeing reusable packaging as growth mechanism for our customers and the supply chains that they operate.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks for taking the time to talk to me today.
Absolutely. Appreciate the questions. Thank you.